Welcome to Geology, a channel dedicated to making concepts in biology simple, easy to understand, and interesting. Today's video is requested by a student from Biopsychology. So this video deals with the mechanism of water regulation and thirst within the human body. First things first, what is thirst? It is a need to drink water, a feeling that we need to drink water. That is thirst. Why do we need to maintain this water level in the body? That's because a lot of chemical reactions within the body happens based on the water. Water also maintains the normal blood pressure in the body, and there are a whole lot of other things that water does. For example, it forms saliva, it regulates the body temperature, it acts as a shock absorber, it converts food components for survival, it delivers oxygen, it lubricates joints, and so many other things which water does. Hence, it is utmost essential that we maintain the water level in our body. Now, different organisms have different strategies which they use for regulating water. For an organism which lives near water, like beaver, it drinks a lot of water along with the food and otherwise. So the mechanism to maintain water in that organism is that it excretes dilute urine. Whereas gerbil, which is also another rat-like animal, but it lives in desert, it doesn't get enough water. So the strategy taken by gerbil is that it gains water from the food, it excretes dry feces and very concentrated urine, it does not sweat, and to avoid the heat, it burrows deep into the soil. It also has a very convoluted nasal passage which prevents water loss during exhaling. When it comes to human beings, we use different strategies based on different situations. Sometimes it is like the beaver, sometimes it is like the girl. In human beings, the mechanism of water regulation is done with the help of a hormone known as vasopressin. This hormone is also known as anti-diuretic hormone. Both the names are related to the two functions that it performs. The first function is it controls the blood pressure by constricting the blood vessels. So when the water is lost from the blood volume decreases, because of which the blood pressure also decreases. In that case, vasopressin constricts the blood vessels and helps to bring back the blood pressure or rises the blood pressure. So the term vaso means blood vessel, pressin means pressure. So that's how it gets the name vasopressin. The other function it has is it reduces the urine output. It makes the kidneys to reabsorb more water while urine formation. So hence it is also known as anti-diuretic hormone. Anti means against, diuretic means urine production. So it is against the urine production. Okay. Now how does it function as anti-diuretic hormone? The hypothalamus detects that the water levels in the body is low. Then the pituitary gland releases ADH. ADH makes the kidneys absorb more water. Because the kidneys absorb more water, the urine which is formed will be less watery, so it will be concentrated. So the blood water level returns to normal in the blood. So this is one way. When the blood has too much water, hypothalamus again detects the water level. Pituitary gland releases lesser ADH. When ADH is less, the reabsorption of water by the kidneys is also less. In that case, the urine which is formed is more dilute and a lot of water gets released from the body, and thus the blood water level returns to the normal. ADH also is produced more at night, because when we sleep, we do not drink water. So we need to conserve the water which is available inside in the body at night. So that work is done by ADH. ADH also prevents the need for us to go to the washroom again and again during night. So for easy recollection, I have made it in the form of a table. where if there is a high concentration in plasma, the problem is that there is too little water, and this increases the ADH release. And when ADH is more water is absorbed by the nephrons. Nephron is basically the cell present inside the kidney, and the effect on urine is that it will be more concentrated. In case of when the plasma is dilute, that is, there is low concentration of salt and more concentration of water, that time the ADH release is decreased, there is less water absorbed by nephrons, and the urine becomes more dilute. So this entire thing is actually an example of a negative feedback mechanism. So this helps to maintain the concentration of blood plasma constant. Now coming to thirst. Thirst is of two types, osmotic thirst and hypovolemic thirst. Hypovolemic thirst is also accompanied by sodium-specific hunger. Now what is the difference between the two? Osmotic thirst is the thirst which is due to eating salty food. When we eat salty food, there is more concentration of salt in the body and we feel thirsty. Whereas hypovolemic thirst happens when there is a lot of water loss from the body, either in the form of sweat or due to bleeding or anything. If there is a loss of fluid from the body, the thirst that arises, the need to replenish that fluid, that kind of a need is known as the hypovolemic thirst. Let's look at each of these in detail. Before that, we need to remember few concepts. The first concept is that in the human body, all the concentration of all the solutes put together should be at a constant level of 0.15 molar. Molar means the number of particles in 1 unit of the fluid. Irrespective of the size of particles, how many number of particles should be there in 1 unit of the fluid. So, in case of human body, all solutes put together should be 0.15 molar. If this 0.15 molar deviates, in that case, the body tries to restore this level again. Now, the second concept we need to know is osmosis. Osmosis is a phenomenon where water flows across a semi-permeable membrane from the region of its own higher concentration to the region of its own lower concentration, which means from an area of low solute concentration to an area of high solute concentration, that is from a dilute solution to a concentrated solution. So osmotic pressure is created in the cell if there is a difference in salt concentration inside and outside the cell. We can see in this diagram, when the cells are kept in the concentrated solution, the cell loses water and it shrinks. When it is in isotonic solution, that is, the solution and the cell have equal amount of solutes, then equal amount of water goes and comes in and out of the cell, and the cell remains of the same size. When the cell is kept in distilled water or dilute solution, then the water enters into the cell and the cell swells. If too much of water enters, then the cell may even burst. Osmotic thirst. Osmotic thirst is the type of thirst which arises because of high consumption of salty items. Now, in the normal state, the concentration of the salt ions inside the blood and inside the cell are equal. Whereas after a salty meal, the concentration of iron in the blood is much more as compared to that of the cells. So because of which what will happen? Water will be drawn out of the cell into the blood, and this will produce an osmotic thirst. So the blood vessel will get swollen and the cells in the body will get shrunken. Now, how does our brain know that we are thirsty? So what is the neuroscience behind it? For that, let's look at the structure of the brain. Very important is the third ventricle here, that is this part of the brain, which has the parts necessary for water regulation in the body. Apart from that, you have this yellow portions, which are the lamina terminalis, which are also involved in water regulation. So in the body, there are some neurons which can detect their own water loss, and then they trigger the osmotic thirst. This lamina terminalis, which are marked in yellow, it is a series of interconnected brain structures, and this acts as a central hub which controls the fluid levels in the body. So there are some cells in the lamina terminalis which are adjacent to the blue portion, that is the fluid filled compartments, which are known as the ventricles. Now when the body has low water, the composition of the fluid within the body, that starts to change, and this neurons which are present in the border of lamina terminalis, they can sense the change in the ventricular fluid, and then they understand the body's water level. So these neurons are the ones which we are talking about here. They can detect the water loss and they can trigger the osmotic thirst. So these neurons also receive messages from other parts of the body, and also from the other parts of brain. So they get a more holistic idea about the body's water needs. In this slide, we are going to see the parts of the brain and the functions which are involved in the regulation of thirst. So I have given the diagram here so that you are able to visualize where these parts are and how do they function. So important portion is this third ventricle here, and then here you have the subphonical organ, and then the OVLT, or the organum vasculosum of lamina terminalis. So these two parts, they can detect the osmotic pressure and the sodium content in the blood. Then the area which is close to the third ventricle, this area has a very weak blood-brain barrier, which means that chemicals can easily come and go into this area. So the neurons or the cells present in this part of the brain can very easily understand and detect the concentration of fluid in the body. Then there are in the SFO area, there are some neurons which can increase the thirst. There are some which can decrease the thirst. Now, the part of the brain which controls the drinking is the lateral preoptic area. And then you have this area here, which is enlarged here, which contains the supraoptic nucleus and the paraventricular nucleus. These two control the rate at which the posterior pituitary releases the vasopressin. So when we eat a salty meal, the salt concentration in the blood increases, and then the cells lose water and becomes dehydrated. That time all these different parts become active and we feel thirsty. What are the different signals in the body for thirst? So these neurons in lamina terminalis are the ones which are detecting all the different signals in the body. Here there are a few signals which are mentioned. Like the mouth may become very dry, swallowing will become difficult, the circadian rhythm will get disturbed. So similarly, all the other parts also show their respective thirst signals. Now, how do we know that we have to stop drinking? So when we drink water, by the time we drink water, it gets absorbed by the digestive system, and then it goes to the hypothalamus uh, along with the blood using the circulatory system and all. It takes about 15 minutes. But for 15 minutes, can we continuously drink water? It is not possible. So how is it that we get to know the feeling that we are already full and we do not need any more water? That process is known as allostasis. Now, allostasis is actually a predictive control. It's not the actual one. It is predictive, which means that we drink when we anticipate that we will be thirsty, and we stop when we anticipate that we are full. So that phenomenon is known as allostasis. So it is a predictive control. So during allostasis, what happens is within a minute of us drinking water, the neurons in the SFO, they get they get to know, and their activity gets suppressed. It doesn't wait for 15 minutes. Similarly, when we drink water and our tongue cools down, that gives a signal to the SFO region again. So that's how the brain gets to know much ahead that we are almost, we are done and we are full. So we do not need any more water. The second kind of thirst is the hypovolemic thirst. The term hypo means low, volemic means volume. So when the volume becomes less, so hypovolemia is a condition where there is low level of extracellular fluid. So there is a low level of fluid in the body because of the loss of fluid, either by bleeding or dehydration or any other ways. So hypovolemia is also known as volume depletion or volume contraction. You can see in case of this blood vessel, the blood is filling up the vessel, whereas in case of a hypervolemia, the blood's volume is less, and because of which the blood pressure is also low. So when we sweat for a long time, or we lose blood and other fluids, the heart finds it very difficult to pump the blood, and it becomes difficult to carry the nutrients also across the body. At that time, there are reactors in the kidney and in the blood vessels. These reactors send the signal to the brain. Now, once the brain receives a signal, it does two things. The first action, it releases vasopressin hormone. Vasopressin, we know, it will constrict the blood vessels. So, water loss will be stopped. And because of also constricting the blood vessels, it increases the blood pressure. The second action is the release of angiotensin 2. So when the blood volume is low, the kidney releases renin into blood. Now the proteins which are there in the blood, they together in association with renin, they form angiotensin 1. Then angiotensin 1 is converted into angiotensin 2. And angiotensin 2 constructs the blood vessels, and then it stimulates the cell in the SFO to increase the drinking water. Sodium specific hunger. So when a person gets osmotic thirst, that is quenched with the help of drinking water. But when a person has hypovolemic thirst, at that time, if he drinks a lot of water, what will happen is that already the blood is less in the body, it will become dilute. So instead, the mechanism is such that the person starts feeling a need or a preference to eat salty items. So those who show a deficiency in sodium, they show a strong preference for salty food. So this phenomenon is known as sodium specific hunger. Let's see it with the help of a flow diagram. I have been showing flow diagrams here because it will make it easy for you to remember. When you are writing in exams, you can write it in paragraph, and you can also substantiate it with diagrams. Adding diagrams always adds up, gives you possibility of scoring 1 or 2 marks more. Okay, now let's see how this renin-angiotensin system works. So when there is a drop in the fluid volume, there is a drop in the blood pressure. So that time the kidney releases renin. Now renin interacts with angiotensinogen. Angiotensinogen is released by liver. So renin and angiotensinogen together combine, and they form what is known as angiotensin 1. Then renin acts on angiotensinogen and forms angiotensin 1. Angiotensin 1 reacts with ACE, that is angiotensin converting enzymes, which is released by the lungs. So ACE plus angiotensin together forms angiotensin 2. Now this angiotensin 2 goes, and then if the wall of the blood vessel is like it is normal and blood pressure is low, this angiotensin 2 helps to constrict the wall and makes it narrow here, thus increasing the blood pressure. And also angiotensin 2 acts on the adrenal gland and stimulates the release of aldosterone. So this is the cap like structure which is present over the kidney. Okay. So after aldosterone is released, aldosterone acts on the kidneys and it stimulates the reabsorption of nitrogen, sodium, sodium chloride and water. So salt gets more absorbed from the kidney. So salt is not lost and we are able to retain more salt here. So when a person experiences sodium specific hunger, the person also goes through this phenomenon. So with this, we come to an end of this topic. I hope you have been able to understand it. And in case you have any doubts and queries, please feel free to write it in the comment section and I will be glad to answer. If you find the video interesting, please do subscribe to my channel and don't forget to like and share the video. Thank you.